well, how can you ensure there's enough for your child, and how much should be there? Like, how do you even know how much is enough, and how can you make sure that there's enough there? The numbers are pretty big, right? There's some recent studies.
It's a moving target. It depends on so many factors. Does the person have a need to be in an institution? Are they homebound? Do they need a caregiver? Are they able to do anything for themselves? Do they have housing taken care of? So this number came from a study done quite a few years ago, and the number is bigger now. It was dealing with autism, average life expectancy. It would include the cost of housing. So it's a lot. If you can take care of the housing component, you've taken a giant step forward, and it reduces that number dramatically. That's maybe one of the most important points to make. We are concerned that the vibrancy and the adequacy of government programs, they're very questionable. The number of folks who are disabled and need government benefits, that number is increasing on a daily basis. Are the resources from government programs increasing on a daily basis? They're not. They are absolutely not. So we have a demand curve that's going way up and a supply curve that's about the same or maybe even dropping. So again, it underscores the need to maximize eligibility for government benefits, take a realistic look at your situation with your child, and do the very, very best you can. Most don't have this much money to set aside. We know that.
So think of a special needs trust. It's kind of like when you retire. When you retire, the idea is you're not going to get any more income. And now you might have a pension, you get some Social Security, but let's assume you don't have a pension, there's no other income. What are the general rules of thumb when you retire for how much money you can take? Well, at least historically, the general rule of thumb was the 3 or the 4% rule. So you could take out about, if your money was invested reasonably well, you could take about 4% per year without invading principal. So if you had $1 million set aside, invested well, you could take about 4% of that per year, $40,000 a year. And in theory, that should last indefinitely. The $1 million should not be invaded because you're getting it from a combination of dividends or income or capital gains returns. So I think that's a useful framework when you're thinking about special needs planning, because there's likely not going to be any new money coming into that trust after you leave money to it up front. So how much is needed up front? So again, back out, what is 3 or 4%? What has to be true for 3 or 4% of what's in the trust to be enough for your child? So let's say that your child needs about $3,200 a month in support. And you can say maybe they'll get some government benefits, but I think I would sleep well at night knowing my child has an extra $3,200 a month from the special needs trust. Well, 3,200 times 12, I'm not doing the math exactly, but it's about $40,000 plus or minus. So then $1 million in the special needs trust should, you never know, but should be about enough. And you can increase or decrease those numbers from there. Usually it's higher. If they need 80,000, you need $2 million in the trust. If they need 120, you need 3 million in the trust. And you might be thinking, well, Mark, that is great. That I would love to have $3 million to leave to my child's special needs trust, but I don't have that. What can we do to fill this gap? Now, there's no perfect solution here, but Mike, why don't we talk about one of the most powerful tools that we see? How can we be certain that there is that safety net in place? What is the powerful tool that we use a lot?
Inevitably, any advisors who work in the world of special needs, inevitably the topic of life insurance comes up. Life insurance is no panacea. There's many situations where it doesn't make sense, but here it can make a great deal of sense. Locking in a death benefit, naming the special needs trust as the beneficiary. So I want to give you a real life story that just makes this point very, very profoundly. This was a number of years ago. A couple came to see me. They had 2 children, one of whom was profoundly sick, severely disabled. It took 30 to 35 minutes to give that baby a meal using a dropper. It was physically limited, 0 mental capacity, but a reasonable life expectancy for a number of reasons. And the parents were worried to death. And they came to us to think about the special needs trust. Their other child was just fine. They decided that they had no choice but to leave virtually everything in the estate to the special needs trust, which made them very, very sad, like they were doing the wrong thing for their other child. There were tears flowing in the room. Importantly, by the way, the wife's mom and dad came along to that meeting, and we ultimately recommended they think about life insurance and options that might be available. And we had them meet with a professional who has experience in this world, and they were in their 40s, relatively young, healthy, and he developed a number of options so that they could purchase a $1 million life insurance policy. The 2 main options, the best deals they could get, one was that they would pay about $4,300 a year for the rest of their lives and lock in this $1 million death benefit. It would go exclusively to the special needs trust. The other option was they can make 1 premium payment only, 1 payment upfront, $60,000, and the policy is bought and paid for. And it would, again, lock in that $1 million. They didn't have that much money, but the parents were there. And they put in about half of the money, and between the two of them, they came up with the $60,000 to buy that policy, and it went into place. After that happened, the wife, in a telephone discussion I will never forget, the wife called me up and she thanked me. She said this was the best solution ever. And she said that because they just felt liberated, their mindset changed. She said two things. Number one, we now feel that we can leave a portion of the estate to our other child. And she was crying, and she got me crying on the phone. And she said that because of this also, for the first time, they actually had a different mindset. They felt that they could actually take one night off and go down to Monterey and leave the grandparents with that child. It triggered this avalanche of good feelings and feeling of liberation. So a life insurance policy, it's something that can be a critical role, almost, I hate to say savior, that's an overstatement, but a critical role as you think about these options.
Yeah, it's not possible for everybody. We know this, but we just urge you. We work with some incredible life insurance and financial advisor experts, and we encourage you to speak with them. If you have an old life insurance policy, you may be able to trade in for a much better one. Bottom line is, if you don't have it, and you want to explore it, talk to us. We can connect you with somebody. And if you have an old policy, talk to us as well, because there are actually amazing opportunities to often trade them in for better policies at no extra cost. It's pretty amazing. This doesn't fit everybody. This is just illustrative, but it can be a real lifesaver for many people. So there's other ways to fund it as well. It's not just life insurance, of course. You can do retirement accounts. So it's really important, if you have a special needs trust in place, to direct your retirement account or share of it directly to the special needs trust. We see this mistake a lot where people have a retirement account, it's directed by beneficiary designations. You need to make sure that you name the special needs trust, not your child, as the beneficiary, or you can route it through your living trust. Really importantly, there's a new law in retirement accounts, this is for everybody, called the Secure Act. And what does the Secure Act mean? It means that inherited IRAs, used to be if you inherited an IRA from your parent, this doesn't apply to spouses, but if you inherited from a parent, you just had to take a required minimum distribution every year based on your life expectancy. So if you're in your 40s when you inherited an IRA from a parent, you had 30 plus years to take that money out and pay taxes on it very slowly. The Secure Act limits that to 10 years for everybody, except there's some exceptions. So it speeds up the time over which you have to take that money out and pay higher income taxes in theory. Special needs trusts, if the beneficiary has a disability, they do not have to take the money out within 10 years. They can stretch that over the child's life. So there's a benefit of leaving special retirement accounts to a special needs trust. Very important to remember that. And I think very importantly, it's not just retirement accounts. Maybe it's just investing well. Make sure that you have a good financial advisor or a good approach to investing, a balanced portfolio, tax efficient market-based investing. So make sure that your money is invested in growing. We have crazy inflation now. Keeping money in the bank is not keeping up. So if you want to self-fund the trust, meaning there's no life insurance or anything like that, make sure you have enough there. Make sure you're working with a good financial advisor. If you have real estate, you might have a great cash flow positive rental property. Have you dealt with Prop 19? It might no longer be cash flow positive when it goes to your child if you didn't deal with that. Sometimes annuities can be nice things where you pay up front and it can give guaranteed cash flow to the special needs trust over time. But I think really importantly, it's important to work with an integrated team when it comes to this. Don't leave this to chance. And what does this mean? It just means one hand should be talking to the other. Your financial advisor should be talking to your attorney. You need to make sure your beneficiary designations are up to date, your accounts are titled properly, that your plan is consistent with new tax laws. So this is something that we are big believers in. We worked with many financial advisors. We're happy to talk to yours. If you're looking for a new advisor, talk to us. We have a couple of advisors in a network that we're building where our clients work with them. We coordinate with them. There's no extra cost to clients. We can make sure that one hand is talking to the other. So make sure you're thinking about your child's future. Use that 3 to 4% rule to figure out how much you're going to need. Do you have enough? Are you invested well? Are your retirement accounts directed properly? Is there a gap? Maybe life insurance is a possibility. Are other family members perhaps going to leave money to the special needs trust? Have you coordinated with their attorneys? Have you communicated with them? So there's so much we can do, but you have to plan ahead. Let's set a meeting. Let's review your plan. If you haven't, we invite you to join our client community. Reach out to us at gilfix.com or 650-493-8070. Easy to find us. Set that planning meeting. Let's review it. The stakes are too high to leave this to chance. If you haven't subscribed to our Gilfix Law YouTube channel, subscribe to it. Easy to find us. We're up to about 3,000 subscribers at the time of this. Hopefully by the time you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be even more. But if you are watching this on YouTube, like, comment, share, leave a question or comment for us if you have any questions. Talk to us if you're not sure. Just talk to us. A little bit of planning can have massive impacts on the future.